Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio here on historic Market Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and I cannot thank you enough, as always, for joining us this morning. It is 6 o'clock, so that does mean it's time for Frankly Speaking. Thank you to all the teachers and students and parents getting ready for school, for tuning in. Yesterday we had a surprise guest just for that reason. Of course, former Congressman Joe Sempolinski, normally doing a Thursday interview. He was kind enough to join me on Tuesday for an unrelated project after the fact, and why not kill two birds with one stone? I think we had a blast, even had a protester. All right, first I wanted to bring up this comment because it was posed to other viewers as well. This is from a viewer, and this came in yesterday evening. The Horsehead school tax hit me on Tuesday. Did anyone else get their school tax bill? Our tax rate is 9.4%. I thought the budget wasn't going to be that much. It's over $1,000 more than last year. I would, and also, as a side note, I would not put my child on an electric school bus fire trap. The comments that this viewer is reading says many others. One in about 20 comments are saying that they're moving out. Now, I don't know if that means out of the Horsehead School District or if that means out of the area. Unfortunately, you've seen during the, over a year and a half with this program on the air, how many people have commented that they're moving out, or as we heard polling say, that they're making a 5-year plan. The idea is maybe not ready to move out right now, but making that plan to eventually move out of New York. Now, continuing with this viewer's comments, there's a New York State cap at 2%. Mine comes in at almost 6%. How can we fight this? Well, unfortunately, I mean, you can attend school board meetings and the like, and this isn't all school districts. Not all school districts, but we had quite a few school districts in our area. Obviously, increase the tax rate. So, unfortunately, I would say one of the ways was to vote against it and have that contingency budget. That did not happen. It started to look like it could happen. It did not end up happening in the Corning County Post School District. So I'm not really sure now that it has been enacted and money's being spent, how you can fight it. I mean, there's always the line of going to the school boards, running for school board, those type of things. But the most important step, and I'm not discouraging you to say it's over, but the most important step was attending, actually, at the end of the day, voting for whatever you felt was the best move. It did seem like a major increase in most school districts around here. So I understand your frustration, but posing the question, did anyone else get their school tax bill? And what are your thoughts? Okay, we are going to talk, and I received a lot of comments this morning about Governor Hochul and former Governor Cuomo's aide and what is being called, being accused of, allegedly being a Chinese agent. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. Got a lot of people walking on the street this morning. So we're going to talk about that as well. First, just as an update, we were so busy yesterday morning with Joe Sempolinski being on that I can't remember what exactly we covered and what not in some instances. But with the return to Columbia, where you could argue the anti-Israel protests kind of got the most attention at first, anti-Israel protesters returned to class, vandalized statues, and urged a boycott of classes. Well, that's a nice start to the school year. Let's not attend the classes that our parents are paying so much money for. Someone splattered red paint on a statue in front of the Lowe Memorial Library outside the gates of the university. A small group of protesters marched on a picket line and urged arriving students and faculty to join them rather than go to, I would assume, their first day of classes. A graduate student at Columbia, Mohammed Khalil, said as long as Columbia continues to invest and to benefit from Israel apartheid, the students will continue to resist. Not only protests and encampments, the limit is the sky. At this point, why are you attending school? Just make it your permanent job to protest in and around campuses. Now, the vandalism was celebrated by the National Parent Organization of Students for Justice in Palestine, saying divestment is not an incrementalist goal. True divestment necessitates nothing short of the total collapse of the university structure and American empire itself. It is not possible for imperial spoils to remain so heavily concentrated in, et cetera, et cetera. Again, proving that it's not just anti-Israel, anti-Semitic. There's not this just destructive and violent. It's very much anti-American as well. Now, about 2 were arrested, and we very often see the charges dropped, but 2 were arrested as dozens of Hamas-cheering anti-Israel protesters descended on Columbia in what can only be described as a chaotic start to the new school year. The NYPD arrested 2 people as dozens, and this was just yesterday, dozens of screaming anti-Israel protesters swarmed Columbia University and Barnard College on the first day of classes, resuming the chaotic demonstration. Well, you knew there was no punishment, there's no repercussion. And in many instances, this was encouraged by faculty, it was encouraged on social media, and encouraged by the quote-unquote cool group, because remember, to be cool or to be the most aggrieved, the most offended, the most ready to protest and to boycott. The rowdy demonstrators formed a picket line and banged drums as scores of students waited in lengthy lines to pass through security and gain access to the Ivy League school. Protests also formed outside of neighboring Barnard College, where 2 demonstrators, including one shrouding their face and head, were taken into custody. I wonder if there'll be any more talks of that, about the mask ban. The protesters, including many brandishing signs declaring resist until victory, could be heard chanting over 100,000 dead. Columbia, your hands are red. Oh, that one wasn't that great of a one. And don't cross the picket line. We must honor Palestine. All right, they're trying. They're trying to get new chants going. Inside the campus, as I mentioned, a bronze statue dating back to the early 1900s had been vandalized with red paint by noon. You had a couple issues here. First of all, Governor Hochul didn't really seriously address this with the colleges until last Monday maybe? When obviously preparations were long underway for the start of classes, and you had the president of Columbia, the embattled president, not so much because she let these anti-Israel protests continue and the vandalism and destruction continue. No, because she had the audacity to call in police and faculty, and protesters didn't like that. There should be no repercussions. There should be no punishment for these students. So she was embattled for that reason. She stepped down, but that wasn't even a month ago, was it? That was a couple weeks ago. It probably says here somewhere in there, 2 weeks ago, resigned weeks ago. So 2 to 3 weeks ago. This does not come as a surprise, as we had predicted this. My thoughts were, because it gained so much traction, that kind of copycat idea, that we may see some lower level protests at high schools and the like. But Ricky Schlott at the New York Post has an interesting piece saying Columbia University's new task force has a report that shows anti-Semitism is pervasive at the university, at Columbia University, and it's just a symptom of a larger ailment plaguing elite higher education. The report is yet more evidence top universities are the most overtaken by radical activism and bigotry. And you can blame it on really that elitism, coming from money, having money, knowing that there'll be no repercussions, knowing that the only thing that will happen is maybe even encouragement from your parents, but definitely friends. And again, your professors. In fact, according to a new analysis, schools that cost $60,000 plus a year and have fewer students on scholarship grants have staged the most disruptive demonstrations. And again, not to use their term that is used so often, but entitled. It appears the country's most privileged kids are the ones spearheading campus chaos. On Friday, Columbia released its report on student experiences of anti-Semitism and recommendations for promoting shared values and inclusion as the second installment of publication from its appointed faculty task force on anti-Semitism. It'll be interesting to see who's on that task force. As we know, many faculty members joined in on the protests. As the Post reported this weekend, the 91-page packet is the result of testimony of more than 500 Columbia students. And we know the administration at Columbia and other really elite schools have, unfortunately, what's the word I want to, maybe betrayed student trust by ignoring the threats made on Jewish students, the threats, the intimidation tactics. So sacrificing their safety to coddle the privileged anti-Israel, anti-American protesters. But again, with these protesters, you've got to think they get no sort of punishment. I mean, I guess if you do the pros and cons list, to them anyway, in their circle, in their bubble, the pros outweigh the cons. In this report, it describes Jewish students having been shoved, pushed to the ground, berated for showing support for, quote, Zionist causes, and watching Israeli flags burned. The testimony of hundreds of Jewish and Israeli students have made clear that the university community has not treated them with the standards of civility, respect, and fairness it promises to all its students. But again, they proved last year that they were willing to sacrifice those Jewish students' safety and well-being and mental health, etc., to coddle the elitist anti-Israel protesters. Now, let me just say, this is an update because the beginning of the school year has begun. It will be probably a constant story that we have here. We saw the protests at the DNC, so it's not just college campuses. I do want to highlight that we're not going to focus a ton on this morning. It's more of an update because I really want to get into Governor Hochul and former Governor Cuomo's aide being charged as a Chinese agent. That will be a major section of our program, as well as, of course, the Harris campaign and the Trump campaign and some of the things we're learning there. I do have a couple other New York issues that we may get to. Now, on the other side of that coin, as we talked about it yesterday with the former congressman, the executed hostages that we discussed yesterday on the program, Benjamin Netanyahu, I know they say there's protests in the street against him, and I know he's not well liked on college campuses here. But isn't it nice to see a leader be a leader? When he was giving a speech yesterday, and I'm not exactly sure where this was. Well, it was actually technically Monday. He pushed back against a new wave of pressure to reach a ceasefire deal. And I do want to reiterate this. I know I've said this a lot, but there was a ceasefire deal on October 6th. So you're dealing with an organization, Hamas, a terrorist organization, that just killed 6 hostages. How does that further, at a time when Biden and Harris have been critical of Netanyahu's response, this could all end tomorrow if Hamas ended it. This never had to begin if Hamas didn't begin it. But this is what I'm saying about a leader being a leader. He said during his speech, "No one is more committed to freeing the hostages than me. No one will preach to me on this issue." I think some of the speeches that he's given since October 7th and before, but specifically on this topic, have been impressive, have been inspiring. So it's good to see him not backing down. Now, Michael Goodwin has a piece, and maybe we'll talk about it because I have to take a break already. But it's feckless Biden and Kamala have thrown Israel to the wolves with their ignorance and betrayal. We're just going to talk about that quickly. Then we are going to get into Miss Linda Sun, the ex-aide to Governor Hochul and Governor Cuomo, being accused of being a Chinese agent. We'll talk about that when we come back, so stay with us. Just getting started. Already up to 5 waves, by the way. Just getting started, so stay with us.
Hustlesin's Hot Spring Hot Tub Sales Event is going on now. New technology, cleaner water, easy to use, hot water made simple. Hustlesin's, your locally owned and operated hot spring hot tub store since 1955, is offering huge incentives on their saltwater hot tubs. Deluxe lifters and steps, Bluetooth music, freshwater IQ, plus 0% interest-free financing options. Come to Hustlesin today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hustlesin's Hot Spring Saltwater Hot Tub. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hustlesin's.
If you are on regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app.
For the touchdown!
Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. Your scores. Your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription.
And we are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Last bit of information on this, and as I mentioned, this piece by Michael Goodwin. And Michael Goodwin said, as fate would have it, the 79th anniversary of the formal Japanese surrender in World War II came on the same day that Joe Biden all but encouraged Hamas to keep fighting and holding hostages in Gaza. The contrast suggests that had Biden been president back then instead of Harry Truman, America would have lost the Second World War. Truman boldly led the free world to total victory, while Biden is an appeaser from his head to his toe. The signature moment of this terrible tenure, the catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan, which helped spark wars in Europe and the Mideast and heightened tensions in Asia. Our adversaries see him as a soft touch, and who can say they are wrong? And this is in reference to when asked about the hostages, this executed 6 civilian hostages, one of them American, by the way. He was asked, which is a wrong-headed question to begin with, but he was asked the question, has Benjamin Netanyahu done enough to gain a ceasefire? Given the circumstances, the question was preposterous, but the answer far worse, Biden responding no. Never has one word signified so much ignorance and betrayal. Israel is a key ally, its existence a moral imperative. It is being threatened in a 3-front war with its very survival at stake, and kidnapped hostages are being brutalized. Yet Biden publicly undercuts its democratically elected leader. There was no denunciation of Arab terrorists taking hostages, terrorizing them for nearly a year, then executing them to prove there would be no deal unless Hamas got everything it wanted. Nor did Biden mention that Israel has agreed to earlier ceasefire proposals that Hamas rejected, a fact that American officials concede. Only through a printed statement did the White House even acknowledge that an American citizen had been slain. Given an opportunity on camera to make a forceful denunciation and promise consequences, Biden's one-word, one-sided answer puts more demands on Israel. Nothing was asked of Hamas, which got a green light to keep holding out for more Israeli concessions. Not incidentally, of the remaining 60 hostages thought to be alive, at least 4 are American citizens. Yet Biden has said nothing about them. And adding into this, showing this constant weakness, turning on our ally. And remember, a lot of that has to do with, as Van Jones called it, the anti-Semitic marbling in the Democratic Party, is why he continues to cave and ask for more concessions from Israel, not Hamas, who started this and who could end it at any moment. But it shows a weakness, just like the withdrawal from Afghanistan, that disastrous withdrawal. And you add on top of that, according to Vox, the U.S. military has started running short on recruitments. And we've talked about this extensively in the past. And it's a long piece. It's Vox, far left Vox, but showing how there is a real significant decrease in active military a position that should terrify all of us. 3 of America's 4 major military services failed to recruit enough service members in 2023. The Army has failed to meet its manpower goals for the last 2 years and missed its 2023 target by 10,000 soldiers. That's a 20% shortfall. Today, the active duty Army stands at 445,000 soldiers. That's 41,000 fewer than just in 2021, and the smallest it has been since 1940. The Navy and Air Force missed their recruiting goals too, the Navy failing across the board. The Marine Corps was the only service to achieve its target. But the Marines' success is partially attributed to significant force structure cuts as part of its Force Design 2030 overhaul. As a result, Marine recruiters have nearly 19,000 fewer active duty and selected reserve slots to fill today than they did as recently as 2020. So not to terrify you this morning, but just something to keep in mind. As we know, Biden still president of the United States until January. January 6th, right? So keep that in mind. Again, not to terrify you on this Wednesday morning edition of Frankly Speaking. Okay, let's talk. What were your initial thoughts? You know, I had a couple different viewers comment on this about Linda Sun, who's the ex-aide to Hochul and former Governor Cuomo, being accused of being a Chinese agent. And some have said, and Ed Cox, the state Republican chairman, has said this is a very serious situation. Who else has been compromised? Who else has China tried to pressure or tried to, in this case, well, we'll just say give lavish gifts? You know, I know it's been talked a lot about in the past with Tim Walz's connection to China and all the time he spent there. Some Republicans had raised concerns at the time. That has not really been covered as much in the media as perhaps originally thought. But let's give you a little bit of the rundown on this. Well, no, I can't give you the rundown because we have to take a break. But when we come back from that break, we'll give you the rundown. How's that? Also, a couple, just a little housekeeping here. On tomorrow's program, I'll be talking with a representative from the Salvation Army of Corning, because as you know, we've got that fundraiser coming up, which I'll talk about here in just a little bit. It's going well. Thank you again to everybody reaching out to purchase tickets. We'll tell you more about that a little bit later on. And then on Friday's show, we'll talk about Harvest Fest here in Corning. That's not coming up till the end of the month, but we want to give you a jump start, so you make sure to mark it in your calendar and you are prepared. Yesterday, if you missed it, which I know I kind of surprised you with it, former Congressman Joe Semplinsky joined us. So that's why you got to tune in every morning, folks, starting right at 6 a.m. You never know what to expect, and it's always good here on Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this short commercial break.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Enjoy a taste Finger Lakes at Hector Hideaway.
With a lunch and dinner menu, we serve a variety of delicious dishes made with locally sourced ingredients. Dine inside or out on the deck for gorgeous lake views and pair your meal with a local wine, beer, or beverage. We're open until 9 p.m. Thursday through Monday, but the bar is open until midnight Fridays and Saturdays. Stay tuned for live music. Visit us today at Hector Hideaway.
Whether because of discomfort, lack of mobility, your lifestyle, or occupation, you sit inactively way too many hours a day. Introducing Ellipse, the premium quality automatic seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation without physical strain or impact.
It is so quiet that none of my coworkers even know I'm using it.
Strengthen and tone your legs, increase your mobility, flexibility, and balance, plus stimulate healthy circulation.
My joints feel better, my knees feel feel better. My back feels better. It makes me feel stronger, too.
Perfect for home therapy. Whisper quiet to use while you work.
My circulation is moving, I'm burning calories, and it makes me feel energetic.
Call now and order Ellipse, the seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation. Call and get upgraded to the Deluxe Bundle. Get the faster motor for 5 miles of steps per hour, the step counter, the sport mat, and wireless remote. Call now.
Every Saturday, your game is on Fox. Because here is where it happens. Saturday on Fox, Judge swaggered up and went supersonic. True story. Saturday on Fox, the Dodgers put on a show in New York. You saw that, right? Saturday on Fox, De La Cruz showed off his record-breaking arm. And it was Saturday on Fox when Harper went all Harper. So yeah, Saturday on Fox.
And we are back. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV Big Fox, and I'm your host, Frank Acom. So Linda Sun, the ex-aide to Governor Hochul and to Governor Cuomo, is being accused of being a Chinese agent. A former aide to New York Governor Kathy Hochul was arrested yesterday on charges she secretly used her position to boost the Chinese government and Chinese Communist Party while making millions of dollars from her husband's business exporting lobsters to China. Linda Sun, who's 41, and her husband Christopher who's 40, were taken into custody a month and a half after the FBI searched their Long Island home. Sun is accused of repeatedly taking action on behalf of Chinese officials, doing everything from blocking state officials from meeting with Taiwanese government representatives to fraudulently helping them obtain work visas, to adjusting messaging. This is where it gets embarrassing and troubling. To adjusting messaging by Hochul and former Governor Andrew Cuomo's offices to more closely align with the Chinese government. At one point in March of 2020, Sun arranged for a Chinese government official to listen to a conference call of New York State government leaders who were discussing how to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic and a rise in hate crimes against Asians. This was all, of course, secret. They were listening in. They were not a part of the conversation. In return for all this, Sun and Hu enriched themselves to the tune of millions of dollars after officials with ties to the Chinese government helped Hu's seafood company get a foothold in China. The money, which prosecutors say was never listed on Sun's state disclosure forms or the couple's taxes, allegedly helped them buy a 2024 Ferrari, a $3.6 million home, and a $1.2 million condo in Honolulu. Prosecutors also detailed other perks, including tickets to concerts and sporting events, as well as, and I'm not sure if I'm going to say this right, Nanjing-style salted ducks, which were prepared by the personal chef of a Chinese government official and sent 3 separate times to Sun's parents' home. Sun wielded her position of influence among executives to covertly promote the People's Republic of China and Chinese Communist Party agendas, directly threatening our country's national security. It was said in a statement. Now, both pleaded not guilty. Sun was released on a $1.5 million bond. Hu received a $500,000 bond. Sun was also barred from contacting the Chinese consulate and mission. The Chinese embassy in Washington did not respond to an inquiry. Now, Governor Hochul released a statement yesterday saying, "I'm furious and I'm outraged and absolutely..." Oh, we got a lot of comments coming in. Sorry, I get distracted sometimes. You have to bear with me. Couple waves. "I'm furious and I'm outraged and absolutely shocked at how brazen her behavior was. It was a betrayal of trust, the trust of government, the trust of the people." Hochul declined to specify the misconduct that was discovered, but said it would come out in the course of Sun's legal case. Now, she has served as a number of roles in the Cuomo administration as well. So not just Hochul's, but Cuomo's as well, including a high-ranking post in the state's economic development branch that involved organizing international trade missions. Her influence campaign lasted from 2015 through 2023, nearly a decade. The indictment alleges she had regular communication with Chinese government officials about her efforts to promote China's reputation in the Empire State. Doesn't it raise a huge red flag about checks and balances in these various offices of bureaucrats. I don't know if you'd really consider a bureaucrat, but an aide, where she can get away with this for nearly a decade. She even admitted at the time that she nearly had a heart attack when Cuomo released a press statement referring to Taiwan as a country, which she immediately had removed. These are the kind of things she did behind closed doors. So they're talking about $4 million mansions, salted ducks, I guess that's a big deal, ballet performances, and other luxury gifts from the double life as a Chinese agent. In exchange for advancing Beijing's agenda in New York, the feds allege that Sun and Hu received millions of dollars in shady kickbacks and laundered it to buy a $4.1 million mansion, a $2 million luxury condo, and a fleet of cars, as I mentioned earlier. But the Chinese government's gravy train allegedly didn't stop there. Among the gifts that grateful Chinese officials lavished on Sun and her family, according to the indictment, and here we go, the Nanjing-style salted duck, choice concert tickets and travel. Aren't any of these things noticed? Okay, maybe not the ducks, but you're traveling a lot, getting to go to a lot of concerts. I mean, does that show how much maybe they're getting paid, where it doesn't even pop up on Cuomo or Hochul's radar? Sprawling homes and luxury cars. Anything else here? Nope, that looks about like it. So yes, Governor Hochul is furious with this. It was a betrayal of trust. We've been working with the Department of Justice in this investigation, and we'll continue to make sure that all the information that's out there is revealed and that justice is served. This is going to be interesting to watch, because if she had allegedly nearly a decade pushing this kind of influence, what else don't we know? And who else is compromised? I'm not alleging anybody is compromised, but it does raise red flags if she was able to get away with this for that long. And no one said, why does she change our press releases? How does she take these trips and have these vehicles? Why is her husband, well, she's not even paying her taxes on it. Now, needless to say, Hochul was quick to distance herself from the mid-level staffer after the arrest. The individual was hired by the executive chamber more than a decade ago. We terminated her employment in March of 2023 after discovering evidence of misconduct, immediately reported her actions to law enforcement, and have assisted law enforcement throughout this process. Now, Cuomo has stayed relatively quiet. His spokesperson, Rich Azzopardi, wrote on Tuesday afternoon, national security is critical and must be free from foreign influence. While Ms. Sun was promoted to deputy chief of staff in the subsequent administration, during our time, she worked in a handful of agencies and was one of many community liaisons who had little to no interaction with the governor. So is that saying that she was deputy chief of staff at one point? Must be to Hochul, he's suggesting? Wow. All right. We got to take another break. A little bit more about this story. I'd love to hear your opinion on it. Also, your thoughts. I know a lot of talk is going to debate prep and debate time coming up on the 10th, less than a week away. So what are your thoughts? What Trump would you like to see? What do you expect to see from Harris? We're also going to talk a little bit here about the media and their attacks on Trump and Trump supporters. Did you see Brian Setzer? That's not his last name. It's been so long since he's been in there. Brian, what is his last name? Brian Stelter, excuse me. Back at CNN. If you ever watched Greg Gutfeld, he would tease him a lot, pick on him a lot. Interesting that he's back at this important time in history. Not a big fan, but we'll talk about that as well. So many things to cover. Just getting warmed up. There is not an interview this morning because we've back at them this week. We had Joe on yesterday, former Congressman Joe Semplinsky. We have a guest from the Gaffer District on this week and a guest from the Salvation Army of Corning that works directly at the Salvation Army of Corning to talk about the fundraiser on Saturday. On Sunday. The fundraiser on Sunday. I should know that by now. We've been putting a lot of planning into this, and thank you to everybody who's purchased tickets. We'll talk about that a little bit later on to give you another opportunity because the next few days we're going to have a big push for this. Because it does mean so much to the Salvation Army, but means so much to the community and all the work the Salvation Army does for the community. But let's take a quick break. Then more on this Governor Hochul and former Governor Cuomo's aide, worker, son who has been arrested as a potential agent, Chinese agent. We'll talk about that in even more depth when we come back. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Come explore the magic of Knapp Winery. It's the perfect fusion of wine, food, and panoramic views. This charming destination will delight every palate with a curated wine flight, wine by the glass, or your favorite bottle to share. Some special finds to try.
Now there's a product that sears food, stirs it, even shreds it for you. Introducing the PowerXL StirMax Multi-Cooker with a built-in auto stirrer that gives you the freedom of adding your ingredients and walking away and coming back to meals that cook up to 60% faster. No more stirring food. StirMax technology automatically rotates the paddle clockwise, then counterclockwise, so it stirs it for you. Powerful enough to even shred food. Then the 7.5 quart pot goes right to the table to serve. With a premium ceramic coating, nothing sticks. And it's dishwasher safe. Now you can try the PowerXL StirMax Multi-Cooker with lid and recipe guide in your home for 30 days for just $14.99. You also get the steamer and rice basket for healthy meals, StirMax serving spoon that snaps in place for easy serving, and $100 in free grocery coupons. We'll even ship your order all absolutely free. This is an exclusive TV-only offer, so order now.
Fox College Football Friday and Big Noon Saturday kick off a whole new era of college football.
I cannot wait for this game.
With new matchups, historic rivalries, and brand new conference clashes.
Listen to this crowd come alive.
The Big 10,
whoa,
Big 12,
unbelievable,
and Mountain West are hitting Friday and Saturday harder than ever.
Monstrous hit.
This is the season we've all been waiting for. College football on Fox.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app.
For the touchdown!
Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. Your scores. Your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription.
Touchdown!
Grab your Fox Sports app today.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. A comment from a viewer. Thanks for reporting on our governor's office, and this is deep. And will they scramble to cover this all up? I hope not, as the truth will come out. Well, it seems like they are trying to bury it, already saying, they weren't that important. She wasn't that important in our administration. She was able to allegedly get away with this for nearly 10 years. And there's no red flags when she has these lavish vehicles and trips, and she's asking you to change a press release or asking you to change something on the website. It raises major questions. Now, who else is China recruiting? Asks the New York Post. New York political insiders warn of a broader CCP effort after arrest of Governor ex-Hochul aide. Political insiders and watchdog groups pointed to the Brooklyn federal court indictment of Linda Sun and her husband, Christopher Hu, as showing the extent of China's spy recruitment apparatus. And we've speculated on this for a long time. We've talked about China's really their push to infiltrate in our government and elsewhere. You know, we've talked about hacking in the past, where they get something as simple as, not as simple in the long run, but as a way to break in and hack into municipalities' water systems and the like. But continuing, Ed Cox, the state Republican Party chairman and son-in-law of former President Richard Nixon, said this is a dangerous situation. Now, Cox, who visited China with Nixon in 1979, said it was startling to read of the indictment. The son and her husband allegedly obtained millions of dollars in exchange for pushing the executive chamber to toe the CCP line, including undermining Taiwan. Ed Cox saying this is a wake-up call that this kind of Chinese operation is going on in New York State. But you've got to ask, if it's going on in New York State, where else is it going on? New York State, arguably a more visible state when it comes to the media with New York City. So why, if this was allowed to go on for 10 years, imagine in maybe a different area. Cox said, China is not a friend. This is a national security issue. There's absolutely no doubt. Now, this isn't the only foreign government trying to flex its interest in New York and in the United States as a whole. Iran is reportedly bankrolling groups organizing anti-Israel protests, and there's an ongoing federal probe of whether Turkish interests illegally benefited Mayor Eric Adams' 2021 election campaign. But China has the most far-reaching spy and influence peddling operations in the United States, said Representative Richie Torres, a Democrat from the Bronx. There is no foreign government that has penetrated the United States more deeply and broadly than the Chinese Communist Party. It may have most effective and aggressive espionage operation in human history. And that's why this is something you always got to kind of watch out for. You've seen some state senators, not ours, of course, but some state senators saying, well, let's give Sun the benefit of the doubt. And listen, she is innocent until proven guilty. But to rush out to defend her makes you wonder, right? One Queens Democrat who requested anonymity said the CCP has a presence in the Bureau and he's mindful of it. The CCP is trying to infiltrate. At parades, there are signs for the CCP. I don't want to be pictured with a sign for the CCP, the politician said. There's ample evidence of CCP posting spies and trying to sink hooks into local politicians and segments of the growing Asian population. 2 men last year were charged with running a secret police station in Manhattan. Do you remember that? On behalf of the Chinese government. Arrests that were part of a sweeping federal crackdown on Beijing's influence campaign in the U.S. How many times on this program have we talked about the real serious threat of China, Iran, and Russia, especially at a time when we had that story just moments ago that the military's recruitment numbers are down significantly, when we have leadership that has shown weakness on the world stage, and now you have this influence peddling campaign and the like. Michael Lisi, founder of State Armor, an organization that advocates for protecting state governments against foreign adversaries, says states have very little clue that China is doing all this. He called the Sun indictment a black and white case that is quite naked and brazen, whereas the CCP typically operates more subtly in gray areas. One upstate Republican lawmaker called for the creation of a bipartisan state commission to investigate this activity. Quote, that the Chinese Communist Party infiltrated the highest levels of state government is surreal, completely unacceptable, and deeply unsettling, said State Senator Jake Ashby, the ranking member of the committee overseeing Homeland Security. And here's the one that I mentioned. Queens State Senator John Liu, a native of Taiwan, who was the first citywide Asian elected official when serving as comptroller, said people shouldn't rush to judgment and praise Sun, who he's known for years. I've worked with Linda Sun for many years, and I've only known her to be diligent, professional, and conscientious, and she's absolutely innocent until proven otherwise. The federal government has a sordid track record of making accusations against accomplished Chinese Americans, only to later drop all charges with no regard to lives and careers destroyed needlessly. Whew. All right, there you are. So who else has been compromised? As so many have said, that the CCP is certainly set up in our community. We don't know with who. And as I had mentioned earlier, and the New York Post has a good point on this. Before we go to break, we'll bring it up when we come back. But China has made Hochul, Cuomo, and really the Biden-Harris administration look like fools in all this. So we're going to talk about that, kind of wrap up the last, we have another break too, but wrap up the last little bit of this hour. So stay with us. We'll be right back, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Hesselson's Hot Spring Hot Tub Sales Event is going on now. New technology, cleaner water, easy to use, hot water made simple. Hesselson's, your locally owned and operated hot spring hot tub store since 1955, is offering huge incentives on their saltwater hot tubs. Deluxe lifters and steps, Bluetooth music, freshwater IQ, plus 0% interest-free financing options. Come to Hesselson's today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's Hot Spring saltwater hot tub. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Shell Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You're faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon.
Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's go to some viewer comments, shall we? First of all, I'm going to start with the one that's off topic, but I think it's a really great question. Not necessarily what we're talking about this morning, but a fantastic question. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Off topic, but how many schools have had new filtration installed? That was the reason teachers union said they couldn't place teachers in danger, correct? That is a great point. I remember, since we talked about it, well, we didn't talk about this issue specifically, but we mentioned that I worked for former Congressman Joe Sempolinski for a short period. Well, his term in Congress was a short period in general. He'd be the first to admit that. And it was fascinating watching some of those hearings where they would talk at that time with the teachers union, who put such a campaign on and such a pressure campaign to keep students out of the schools for so long, and it was so detrimental and so hurtful in the long term for the students. And there was a lot of anger at the time that seems to, unfortunately, have been kind of pushed off, brushed under the rug. But there was a pressure campaign put on by the teachers unions to keep students out of the schools, and it was in the long term very, very detrimental. So that's a great point. That was one of the excuses used. New air filtration systems, were they ever installed? That was the reason teachers union said they couldn't place teachers in danger. Great point. Thank you very much. There's nothing off topic. We always try to get to every comment. All right, next up. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. What does this Chinese spy situation say about our vetting system for people who are in the political sphere? Great point as well. Why is it not mandatory for FBI to vet and monitor these political associates? Numerous congresspersons have been shown to be compromised. Thank you. And that's from our friend Lynn. Thank you, Lynn. Yeah, I think, and there's a story here about who Linda Sun really is, and she just... she landed in Albany about 15 years ago as a young political staffer and worked her way up into the executive chamber. But when you talk about the vetting process, how is she, as a low-level aide, if you hear Hochul say it, how are you not, someone at least in Hochul's administration, not aware of, wait a minute, you're going on a lot of trips, seem to have some really nice houses, going to all the concerts, the ballet, where's all this money coming from? And then when you look at their taxes, they're not reporting it. And you want me to change press releases to not mention Taiwan being a country? I couldn't agree more. What is the vetting process? And how can they look at your taxes, my taxes, and jam us up at times? But in this case, getting away with it for I'm not sure how long without paying taxes on it. So that's a very good point. Another comment, politics has become an episode of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. That's a good point. Well, no, because you actually have to answer tough questions on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You actually have to have some knowledge, useful knowledge, not just how to be corrupt. Good point, though. The title, yes. The substance of the show, no. Look at almost every item at Walmart. Most items are made in China. They always use our dollars and left behind military equipment against us. It's become rampant around the world. Thank you very much. Another comment from a viewer. I'm hoping that she cracks under the pressure, this meaning Sun, and implicates others that are feeding off the Chinese. Yes, I hope that we get to the bottom of this, because her and her husband, allegedly, are not the only ones. And that's why Ed Cox was signaling the alarm that this is serious. China is a threat, and they are infiltrating. We've got to get to the bottom of just exactly where they're infiltrating. But it seems like if there were so many red flags with Miss Sun, what about the people that are actually good at covering it up? Anyway, so as I mentioned, this piece, or do you want to find out a little bit more about Linda Sun? She was 15 years ago. She started as a young political staffer and worked her way into the executive chamber, where the feds alleged she worked to advance Chinese interests. Political insiders were shocked by the arrest of Sun and her husband on charges of violating and conspiring to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act, visa fraud, alien smuggling, and money laundering conspiracies, to which they have pleaded not guilty. There's nobody who worked in or around politics in the Asian American community who knew Linda Sun who isn't absolutely floored by this, one source familiar with the case said. I've worked with Linda Sun for many years, and I've only known her to be diligent, professional, and conscientious, and she is absolutely innocent until proven otherwise. That's State Senator John Liu from Queens. According to an indictment, well, we know all about that. But the Queens operative had a modest upbringing, so her son moved to a fancy Long Island home, raised eyebrows, even before it was raided by the FBI in July. Linda doesn't come from money at all, the source familiar with the Sun said. Several were also confused on how a government staffer and her husband, who owns a liquor store and some other nondescript businesses, were able to buy that really expensive home, which was purchased without a mortgage. Red flag, red flag, red flag, according to property records. It seems crazy to me, one source said. Well, it should seem crazy to everyone. Sun came to the state capitol in 2009 as a close ally and chief of staff to then Assemblywoman Grace Meng. They got to Albany and didn't have anybody except each other, a source said of Sun and Meng. As Meng's star rose amongst New York Democrats, so did Sun's. Several people told the Post that they were impressed with Sun's work ethic in the legislature and through her posts in the administrations of former Governor Andrew Cuomo and then Governor Kathy Hochul. One source said Meng, who is now a U.S. Congresswoman, recommended Sun for a job in the Cuomo administration as a rep handling Asian American affairs in Queens. A rep for Meng said in a statement, quote, "We don't know anything about the charges other than what is being reported." After joining the administration, Sun continued working in Asian American affairs, but eventually came to wear other hats as well, shifting to the Empire State Development Office, where she handled trade missions with a portfolio focusing on Asian countries, including China. She also worked for the Department of Financial Services and Intergovernmental Affairs. And according to the indictment, Sun sat for a voluntary interview with the FBI back in July of 2020. It's unclear what the exact purpose of that interview was, but the indictment notes that the agents told her about the requirements of the Foreign Agents Registration Act and discussed a think tank's report of Chinese influence operations. Sun was brought on as a deputy chief of staff to the executive chamber in 2021 following Cuomo's resignation. Wow, deputy chief of staff to the executive chamber. That's a pretty high-ranking position, no matter what Governor Hochul wants to say. Over a year, though, keep in mind, if you do the timeline, that was a year after that FBI interview, she was promoted, if you will, as deputy chief of staff to the executive chamber. Now, she was ultimately fired in March of 2023 after the Hochul administration said it uncovered evidence of misconduct. After being canned from the Department of Labor, Sun managed a campaign by Austin Chang to try and unseat then Representative George Santos. Chang dropped out after Representative Tom Suozzi announced his bid to retake this old seat. Now, again, Cuomo's spokesman, Rich Azzopardi, is trying to point fingers at Hochul, which is kind of typical. While Ms. Sun was promoted to deputy chief of staff in the subsequent administration, during our time, she worked in a handful of agencies and was only one of many community liaisons who had little to no interaction with the governor. But going back to that point that viewer made, one of many community liaisons, if you knew how many people worked in and around Albany, let alone Washington. How many people are part, as that viewer worded it, government sphere? How many people were apparently unvetted as part of that government sphere? It would shock you and undoubtedly appall you. Last break of this hour. One last quick thing. We're going to probably save that piece by the New York Post editorial board for the next hour. I see some comments coming in. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Attention, Elmaron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmaron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmaron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmaron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
I'm Marianne Kirk. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
The Antler's back on Fox for a season like no other. It all kicks off with a huge Week 1 doubleheader. First, Justin Jefferson and the Vikings take on the Giants.
What a throw!
Then Tom Brady makes his debut in the booth for America's Game of the Week as Dak leads the boys.
Holy cow!
Against Watson and the Browns.
On the touchdown!
It all kicks off September 8th on Fox, home of Super Bowl.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Everybody getting excited for football on WYDC TV. Big Fox. I see the ads. Okay, a couple comments from viewers. Good morning, Frank. Wasn't there something about a shady deal between Biden's son and China? Yes, of course there was. I'm guessing that was a rhetorical question even. Of course, there's actually a lawsuit that just hit yesterday on the eve of Hunter Biden's tax trial. That asks the question whether Joe Biden got FBI warnings of the security risks of Hunter's foreign business dealings. Yeah, so that connection has been made numerous times, or at least attempted to be made, or been questioned about Hunter's ties with China. So that's a very, very good point. We've also, there were some Republicans that were questioning Tim Walz and his connections to China as well. Another comment from a viewer. China is a threat. Sounds familiar. We heard that from, could it be Trump? Yes. Trump making, sounding the alarm on that for a long time, being criticized for it, being mocked for it in many instances. But yes, of course, that's what was one of Trump's big campaign points, especially back in 2016. All right, so this hour is through. We've got 1 hour, obviously, together. It's a 2-hour program. We're going to wrap up our discussion on Sun, the former aide to Governor Hochul and former Governor Andrew Cuomo. Then we've got some things here about the political campaigns, Trump, Harris. So make sure that you stay with us. It's hard to believe how quickly an hour goes. Just like yesterday, our hour went instantly, and then we had an hour with former Congressman Joe Semplinsky. But in the next hour, we don't have an interview, but I will be talking a little bit about the Salvation Army. So if you're looking to buy those tickets, it's not too late. The fundraiser is on Sunday right here at Nazareth Civic Center in Corning. We'll tell you about that in the next hour at some point. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be, if I can find the break, we'll be right back.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Our water's better tasting, it's better for the planet.
That's great, sir. Can I take your order?
Oh, number 3.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay.
You see, when we install our drinking water and softening systems, we're thinking about filtering contaminants and the minerals that make water hard. So you can just think about softer, cleaner, better tasting water. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Name something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking. Broadcasting live from the Hasselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I am your host, Frank Acom. I cannot thank you enough for joining us. If you missed hour number 1, you missed a lot. We've been talking about Governor Hochul and former Governor Andrew Cuomo's aide that has been accused of being a Chinese agent. According to the New York Post editorial board, China has made a complete fool out of Governor Hochul and Andrew Cuomo too, per this new indictment of one of their top aides on espionage charges by U.S. Attorney Breon Peace. Shouldn't Hochul be screaming at the top of her lungs and demanding strong federal action against Beijing? Heck, the Harris-Biden administration shouldn't even need prodding. China placed an agent in the executive chambers of New York State government. Doesn't that merit the expulsion of key Chinese officials at the very least? Where else are China's spies operating, they ask. Linda Sun, a former top aide to Hochul, who'd also worked for Governor Andrew Cuomo, faces federal charges, as you know, unless you're just joining us, and that's a shame if you're just joining us. But I'm glad you're here. Peace said, while appearing to serve the people of New York as deputy chief of staff within the New York State Executive Chamber, the defendant and her husband actually worked to further the interest of the Chinese government. The illicit scheme enriched the defendant's family to the tune of millions of dollars. I've got to go back to the point. So she's the deputy chief of staff for the New York State Executive Chamber. Think of how many titles, and I know in Washington, so I'm assuming in Albany too, titles are very, very important. And you'll see staffers for congressmen. This was never the case when I worked for Congress, but where they had 25 people more. You look at, imagine a senator then at that point. And so going back to that viewer's point, which I think is a very solid point, what kind of vetting process is there? Yeah, I think that's a fair question. I mean, I remember having to take classes on ethics and things like that. I'm sure they did some type of background check. I just don't remember, but not to the extent of, I mean, she wasn't paying her taxes. She did not come from money and had amazing, and now everybody says after the fact. I always thought that was kind of weird. Isn't that convenient how that works? Oh yeah, it turns out that Biden was unhealthy. Someone told me about it 2 years ago. Oh, really? The lady that has mansions and Ferraris, that's a staffer in Albany? That does seem a little weird. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting on tangents there. Sun acted, quote, at the request of the Chinese officials and the Chinese Communist Party in numerous political activities, blocking Taiwanese representatives from meeting with top state officials, changing state messages to please Beijing, obtaining proclamations for Chinese representatives without authorization, and arranging meetings for Chinese delegations. In return, Sun and Hu got millions from Beijing, using the funds to buy homes now valued at a whopping $6.2 million, cars, and other items. Clearly, China sees officials like Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and Hochul as pushovers. Well, there's the questions about Biden, as that one viewer brought up, and his son, the first son, Hunter. So, yes, I mean, obviously, I think pushover is a good word. Remember when Beijing sent a spy balloon across America with nary a peep from Harris-Biden? Boy, that's a good reference. We forget about that, don't we? Alas, don't expect them to do anything different this time. Hochul, incidentally, ignored warnings about CCP influence operations, despite media reports about the Sino-American Friendship Association's ties to the CCP. For instance, senior Hochul aide Elaine Fan last year attended an evening of Chinese culture sponsored by the group, and the Met's National Review's Jimmy Quinn reported. The feds had warned local officials that China seeks relationships with them to promote its agenda, noting that locals risk being manipulated by CCP influence operations and calling them deceptive and coercive. And China's agenda is indisputably evil. Beijing has persecuted and murdered many in that Muslim group, the Uyghurs, threatened its Pacific neighbors, repressed its own people, and even targeted foes on U.S. soil. Hochul has bragged of the, quote, beautiful relationship between our countries, calling them amazing partners with whom we continue to work together collaboratively. Chinese Consul General Hu Ping, a CCP hardliner, who the feds say oversees organized harassment against critics here, and who appears to be PRC official -1 in the indictment, even praised Hochul as a, quote, old friend. So going back to that one viewer's comment, this is going to get brushed under the rug, right? This is going to be covered up. No wonder one of her top aides allegedly got away with spying for China. Nor is there much doubt Harris and Biden will remain mute about it as well, emboldening the Chinese communists to grow even more aggressive. Blame their naivete or their trademark Harris-Biden fear of escalation. Either way, the prospect of America are terrifying. And I thought that was a really important point at the end, and that's why I brought it to you. There is that trademark Harris-Biden fear of escalation, especially as we near November. Remember, they even said at the time, and kind of going off topic, that Biden was pressuring our allies not to say anything bad about Iran increasing their nuclear division. What's the word I want to look for? Their nuclear arsenal. Tried building that up. They didn't want any pushback because they're afraid Iran would get mad, and if something escalated, it would be very bad for November. Same thing here. They don't want any type of escalation. Not before November. Remember, they just have to wear out the clock. They have to run out the clock for 60 days. So they're not looking for any trouble from anyone. But piggybacking this, and please continue to weigh in on this, that this is, I think it's very troubling. I think it's very disturbing. I'm unfortunately not surprised by it. But do you believe this will get the coverage, will get the attention from Harris and Biden, Hochul, that it deserves? I have my doubts. Now, one other thing about New York, just because it kind of piggybacks off of this when we get into New York State politics. I saw there was an article this morning on Empire Report where they're saying, can Hochul finally prove her worth and not be a detriment to Democrats? A lot of people putting the blame on her, when really they should be putting the praise on Lee Zeldin, but putting the blame on her of why they lost the House because there were so many important New York seats that swapped. So they're saying, this is really a test in November. Is she going to be a detriment to the party yet again? Also, we learned New York Democrats are fearing that abortion rights amendment that will be up for a vote is faltering. Once a vehicle for boosting turnout, Democrats worry opponents are making inroads with voters. Democrats are squabbling over an effort to guarantee abortion rights in New York, a fight that is threatening to upend the party's plans to win control of the House. Democratic consultants for swing seat candidates are increasingly anxious that a well-organized campaign by conservatives to sink a proposed state constitutional amendment on abortion could hurt the party's candidates in battleground seats. For now, top New York Democrats are not planning to open up their coffers to respond to those attacks. The unwillingness to spend has some party operatives concerned state Democratic leaders are failing to effectively counter an opposition that has seized on the amendment's expansive language pledging rights for LGBTQ plus people. The so-called Equality Amendment would ban discrimination against gender identity and pregnancy outcomes, adding to current constitutional protections for race and religion. An issue that would have been an easy win in New York, as it had been for Democrats across the nation, is now at risk of backfiring because of how they chose to craft the amendment. Maybe just like when you saw with the legalization of marijuana, playing fast and loose, doing it quick to virtue signal, and not really doing it correctly. The pushback from the right has relied heavily on, this is Politico. This is Politico, so here you go. Anti-trans rhetoric. A line of attack that internal polling shows has proven persuasive to voters in battleground House districts. 3 people who have reviewed the data told Politico. I don't want to go through any more of what Politico had to say. I just thought that was an interesting piggyback because I'm sure you've heard a lot about that. And this is a case where it's kind of saying Democrats might have bit off more than they could chew, thinking that it was an easy win, but then they had to get maybe too specific, or you would argue not specific enough, like we saw with the legalized marijuana bill. The New York Democrats now fear the abortion rights amendment is faltering. All right, we got to take our first break of hour number 2. We got some comments coming in, a lot to talk about. We've got just a couple quick updates on the media. We're going to talk about some polls that are coming out. Also a little bit here about Harris. A lot about media bias. Some Trump updates and much, much more. If you are new to the program, I like to do a little housekeeping here. You see that number on the bottom of the screen. You can reach out anytime and comment. We've tried to read your comment during the broadcast. Also, if you're not familiar with the wave, you see a little hand down there. If you want to send me a wave emoji, or a lot of times, especially on a nice morning like today, people out walking or jogging, they'll wave, and we add them to the list. Originally, it was supposed to be in-person waves, and then I thought, wait a minute. Don't we want people watching the show? So an at-home wave watching the show is better statistically than an outdoor wave. It's just a little way to bring this more of a community broadcast so you can be a part of the show, because as I said, especially during the DNC, you are the show. This is about you. You're the pundits. You're the commentators. You're the analysts, I should say. You're whatever term they always use in the media, because they get these people like Brian Stetler that, we get the good ones. We get the good comments. We get the informed comments, the non-biased comments, so I do appreciate it. Let's take that break. Now that I've rambled on, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us.
Lowe's knows Labor Day calls for one final summer celebration. That's why we've got the Labor Day deals you need to end one season and start the next. Get great deals in-store or online today.
Whether because of discomfort, lack of mobility, your lifestyle, or occupation, you sit inactively way too many hours a day. Introducing Ellipse, the premium quality automatic seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation without physical strain or impact.
It is so quiet that none of my coworkers even know I'm using it.
Strengthen and tone your legs, increase your mobility, flexibility, and balance, plus stimulate healthy circulation.
My joints feel better, my knees feel better, my back feels better. It makes me feel stronger too.
Perfect for home therapy. Whisper quiet to use while you work.
My circulation is moving, I'm burning calories, and it makes me feel energetic.
Call now and order Ellipse, the seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation. Call and get upgraded to the Deluxe Bundle. Get the faster motor or 5 miles of steps per hour, the step counter, the sport mat, and wireless remote. Call now.
How many times have you tried to clean a stubborn mess but end up with no success? What you need is the all-new waterproof Ruby Horsepower, the new cordless and rechargeable power scrubber that cleans faster and easier, guaranteed. Watch, baked on oven grease is no match. It blasts away dirt and grime in no time. The power comes from our rotating brushes, spinning at 350 RPM. The incredible torque fights calcium, mildew, mold, and more. Take it in the kitchen, where it busts through caked-on crud, or outside and tackle tough tasks with ease. Get your Ruby Horsepower with 4 additional attachments, all for just $39.99. Great news! They're in stock and ready to ship. Due to high demand, only 2 per order. Order now.
Call 1-800-980-2344. That's 1-800-980-2344, or visit horsepowerscrubber.com. So call 1-800-980-2344 now.
Please welcome Hot One's Sean Evans.
May the spice be with me.
Things get heated for the top 10.
Have you started to sweat yet?
It's pretty hot, you know, and that's coming from me.
Absolutely awful.
It's a statement.
Tonight.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. One quick quick housekeeping note. Please bear with me. I cannot thank everybody enough who've been stopping by the studio, going to Browns, going online, purchasing tickets for the upcoming benefit for the Salvation Army. So many people have come in and said, hey, I can't make it, but here's so much to buy tickets for law enforcement, fire departments, and we really have a nice stockpile for members in our first responders community. But if you haven't heard me say this, we're going to have a guest on tomorrow's show, I believe, talking about it. Just going to be a fun event. Great food from our friends at Corning Catering. I've talked about the menu with Billy yesterday, and it's going to be a good meal. There's going to be great music there, fun things for kids to do. It's a celebration of 140 years of the Salvation Army. And I know I mentioned a lot, folks, but the Salvation Army does such a great job. And unfortunately, the kettle campaign at Christmas season, in the Christmas season, was not as successful as in years past. There's speculation about people not carrying around cash anymore, et cetera, et cetera. But they are struggling. That's not to say they're not doing everything they've always done in benefiting and helping our community. It's just become more of a struggle. So that's why we're holding this fundraiser, to bring attention to the great work that they do, but also have a blast, end of summer blast, a barbecue benefit for the Salvation Army. So it's just $15 per person. There's going to be a silent auction. There's going to be great food, live entertainment. So if you want to purchase tickets and I'm in the window, just knock on the window or stop me if you see me walking down the street. I've got tickets here. Also, our friends at Brown Cigar Store are selling them, and you can get them. I always forget this part because I'm not the most tech savvy. You can also scan that code and purchase them online. Again, if you can't go but you still want to donate, you can purchase tickets and just let me know, or make a note saying, hey, I want to donate these back, and you donate them to someone in need, and I'd be happy to do that. But at the end of the day, it's about celebrating the Salvation Army, and it's also about helping them raise the needed funds to keep doing all the amazing work that they do for our community. So please, and if you do make it out, come on over and say hi. I'd appreciate it. I will be there all day, so you can stop over. We can have a nice little chat. All right, let's talk about the media for a moment. Oh, and also one last thing. If you have any trouble and you want to get tickets and you're not sure the best way to do it, text me at that number on the bottom of the screen. We'll make sure to get you tickets or figure out how we can make that happen, because we have we're doing really great because of viewers. We've received a lot of great donations. A lot of people just want to go. And I think that's really encouraging to me, and I couldn't be more grateful. So thank you. And that's why I'm putting on the mad dash as we near Sunday's event. We've worked hard on it. I take credit, but I didn't work all that hard on it. It's the great people at the Salvation Army. Brian Stetler is back at CNN 2 years after he was fired. He even said, yes, really. Now, Brian Stetler would take a look at the media. I never, and I'm sure many of you perhaps never cared for him. I know Greg Gutfeld on, I believe it was the 5 or one of his programs on Fox, used to kind of ridicule him a lot. But he's the lead author for Reliable Sources newsletter that he started in 2015. That's where it all started. He was previously canned in August of 2022 after the network's now former CEO, Chris Licht, ended the Reliable Sources program he had anchored since 2013. It was CNN's longest-running show at the time of its demise. But this is not going to be a Back to the Future remake, Stetler said. The media industry has matured. CNN has evolved. And I've changed a lot since I signed off 2 years ago. I loved my old life as the anchor of a Sunday morning show, but to borrow some lingo from my video game blogger days, I finished that level of the game. Time for new levels, new challenges. Stetler's new job comes after former CNN media reporter Oliver Darcy quit to launch his own media newsletter. In his new role as chief media analyst, he'll appear on air, push out digital content, and be in charge of the newsletter that he claimed will be different because I'm different. Stetler wrote that he was fired. He changed his new habits and moved out of Manhattan and to a house farm near one of former President Donald Trump's golf courses. Wow, did he really make that kind of money? Known for his bias, folks. Just a couple updates on the media. Anna Navarro, and Brian Stetler was like this, and there's a lot of people in the media. They come up with a line that they think is going to be brilliant, and have people quoting them for days, get them the attention. I feel like that's what this is. I'm just showing you a little bit of the bias quickly. Ann Navarro said on Tuesday on CNN's News Central that former President Donald Trump was, and I quote, going to be pregnant with the horrible consequences of the Supreme Court decision in Roe v. Wade. They get paid money for this. Anchor Brianna Keeler said, can you talk a little bit about the strategy of taking this message to Trump's backyard and the campaign doing that? What is to be gained with that as the backdrop? As we see this very significant referendum vote happening here shortly in Florida on their 6th-week abortion ban. So Anna Navarro said, well, I think there's credible reasons that make it logical to start in Palm Beach. One is the fact that the issue is on the ballot in Florida, but also that you can point down the road 10 miles away from where we live and where we were, and that lives Donald Trump. You have got to tie Donald Trump to the consequences of Dobbs that have resulted in these horror stories women are having to endure. Here we go. And I quote, Anna Navarro. Donald Trump wants to be a little pregnant on Dobbs, right? In front of some audience. He takes pride and credit for having gotten Roe v. Wade overturned. In front of other audiences, he wants to keep a distance. On the one hand, he tells you he wants more than 6 weeks. But then he tells you within 24 hours that he's going to vote no on Amendment 4. Well, he can't have it all the way. We're not stupid and we don't forget. And he is going to be pregnant with the consequences, the horrible consequences of Dobbs. And he's going to have to carry it to term because come November, women will remember. She's proud of that line. That's why she said it a few times. Keep that in mind. All right, we got to take a break. Got a lot of comments coming in. Oh, a couple waves there that I see sneaking in. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Get those comments in.
Hustleton's Hot Spring Hot Tub Sales Event is going on now. New technology, cleaner water, easy to use, hot water made simple. Hustleton's, your locally owned and operated hot spring hot tub store since 1955, is offering huge incentives on their saltwater hot tubs. Deluxe lifters and steps, Bluetooth music, freshwater IQ, plus 0% interest-free financing options. Come to Hustleton today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hustleton's Hot Spring Saltwater Hot Tub. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hustleton's.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-781-9990 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-781-9990. 1-800-781-9990. Call now.
Back to school arrived. Big Fox TV would like to remind you of some safety tips to keep our children safe in the community as they head back to school. These tips include learning bus safety, remembering bicycle safety, using main roads of travel, and staying in groups. Make sure your child knows what to do if approached by a stranger, and be sure your child knows their after-school plan. This reminder is brought to you by caring businesses in our community. Our friends at Tom's South Corning Collision, Cutler's Carpet, Suburban Propane, Fleet Pride, Shedden's Wholesale, Gerald's Pharmacy.
And we are back just reading these comments. I will get to some of these comments in just a little bit. Sorry, we had a couple big ones there, and now I'm behind. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. But I will read these comments and play a little bit of catch-up in just a little bit. So many great comments this morning. Thank you so much. All right, welcome back to Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio, covering so much this morning. We can still talk about Governor Hochul's aide and former Governor Andrew Cuomo's aide brought up on charges being a Chinese agent. Feel free to weigh in on that at any point. We've had a couple pretty cool discussions this morning about various school districts in our area. Someone at the beginning of the program, they actually texted yesterday evening talking about receiving their Horsehead School District tax payment, the tax bill, wondering if others had this shock that they had. One quick thing, and I know I've brought this up numerous times on the program, why when there's an error, I said that weird, when it comes to some type of technology, does it always err to benefit Democrats? I find this very interesting. Something will come up where Facebook censors something, or social media promotes something, or some website promotes and buries Trump, and it's always in the Democrats' favor. And then they'll come out and say, complete accident. Don't know how it happened, complete accident. Well, a couple weeks difference or a couple days difference in the world of fast-moving technology and social media can make a big difference. So the damage could have already been done. Trump campaign officials have slammed Amazon on Tuesday after the company claimed that a, quote, error in its popular Alexa devices resulted in the gadget providing vastly different responses to the same question about Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. In one instance, highlighted by Fox Business, I don't know if I say that, if it triggers some of your devices, so I'm just going to call it the device, okay? Because I don't want people to have an issue with me saying that word. Devices refused to answer a woman's question about why she should vote for Trump, while offering a more compelling case for why she should vote for Harris. I cannot provide responses that endorse any political party or its leader, the device's female voice stated in response to the Trump question. When the same question was posed to the gadget seconds later, replacing Trump's name with Harris, it argued, quote, while there are many reasons to vote for Kamala Harris, the most significant may be that she is a female of color with a comprehensive plan to address racial injustice and inequality throughout the country. That's an error. So I don't endorse. The machine says I don't endorse anybody. Not Trump. No, I don't endorse when asked about Trump. When asked about Harris, you get the response of, while there are many reasons to vote for Kamala Harris, the most significant may be that she is a female of color with a comprehensive plan to address racial injustice and inequality throughout the country. Well, that does just seem like your everyday error. Mistake. On social media, several users shared video clips on X showing the device providing biased responses to similarly phrased questions about the Democrat and Republican presidential nominee. Now, again, this isn't bias, Amazon claims, that it was a result of an error that has been patched, that's been fixed. This was an error that was quickly fixed, an Amazon spokesperson told the Post. Members of Trump's presidential campaign went to social media to say big tech election interference. Showing a video of a man getting several reasons why you may not want to vote for Donald Trump. When the same device was asked for reasons to not vote for Harris, the device responded, I cannot provide content that insults another human being. So again, just a mistake. It's just like with Mark Zuckerberg. Now that it no longer matters in a way, it did in October of 2019, saying, yeah, we shouldn't have censored the Hunter laptop story. And we shouldn't have listened to the Biden-Harris pressure campaign to censor certain posts about COVID. Error. Just like big tech censorship of the Hunter Biden laptop store was an error. A spokesman for the Trump campaign. It is typical. It's always just a complete error. They never take full responsibility, but just a complete error, and it was completely just a mistake. Don't worry. But that mistake never goes to benefit a Republican, does it? Now, hey, let's talk about Kamala Harris for a moment. Speaking of technology, did you see? Okay, we know the vice president not being forthcoming with the voters when it comes to media interviews and press conferences, just holding rallies, but having that one interview where Walz joined her. It was in with a friendly station, with a friendly host, and the media accepted without even question that she's not going to do another interview before the debates on September 10th. It wasn't even as if they asked her campaign. It was, I think it was Stephen Collinson who just said, and this is a big test, and next will be September 10th, knowing full well that she would not give another interview. And some have even questioned, will she give another interview again? If they can run down the clock, which it looks like the media is totally fine with, why not? Why not campaign from the basement? And the people that say, well, they're not going to stand for that forever. They're going to have some pushback. They only have to pretend to push for 60 days. Now, she was slammed by Twitter users and social media users for this, and talk about phony. And no pun intended, by the way. Harris brushed past reporters and boarded Air Force Two on Monday with her cell phone out and headphones firmly planted in both ears. Now, this is a trick forever in Washington. No, I'm sorry, I got to take this call. This is really important. The Democrat presidential candidate offered an awkward salute before shaking hands with a U.S. service member and striding up the steps of her official jet, one hand pressed carefully to her ear as if listening intently to what she was being told. She glanced back and waved at the reporters near the plane step, pausing again at the top of the ramp to adjust her headphone, just making one more time. Hey, guys, look. I know you think I'm avoiding your questions, but boy, this is an important phone call. I may have just been selected to win a cruise. And the awkward thing is, so not only is she adjusting her headphone, at the same time, she's holding her phone up to her left ear, which is not typically how that works. She may not have been a senator long, but mastered the can't talk on a call play, noted NBC News White House correspondent Mike Mamoli. Pro tip, said Tim Murtaugh. When pretending to be on the phone, when you walk past the press to your plane, do not plug in the headphones so others can see, and also hold the phone to your ear. That is awkward. This destroys the illusion and tells everyone you're... I'm not going to say. She truly is bad at this. Jason Chaffetz, Fox News contributor, said she's so fake. Sorry, too busy to answer questions. I'm listening to the new Taylor Swift song. Joked reporter Elizabeth Wiebel. No, it's not a big story, but it's very awkward in anything at this point to avoid media interaction, to where you can't even answer the quick ones that people are yelling. Now, there's a lot of big stories out. You know, you have the hostages, or a lot of things you'd like to know from the candidate who was running for president that never received a vote, never had to go through the primary process, the kind of vetting process, if you will, to do that. So, yeah, there's definitely some concerns. There's some definitely red flags, and that's why the media should want to press her on policy, should want to press her on news of the day, but they don't. They're happy with running out the time, running out the clock, because anything's better in their mind than Trump, and they're not even really hiding from it. And some people, people were picking on this with funny statements, but I mean, there's some really serious questions that someone running for president of the United States should have to answer. I know Trump gives a lot of interviews in really unfriendly territory. And what is his reward for it? Being called a fascist. Harris not giving interviews, and what's her reward? Pat on the back. Keep it going. Keep it going to November 5th. Then, almost like Obamacare, we'll find out what's in it after it's passed. Pass the bill to find out what's in it. Vote for Harris to find out where she stands. Last I knew, I haven't checked this morning, I sometimes forget, there were no policy statements up on her website. Not giving interviews, not doing press conferences. That's why there's so much attention on the debate on September 10th. But again, I pose the question, do you think it'll ultimately end up happening? because Harris can really run this out, not do any more interviews, not have anything that's not on script. And that's what I'm stressing here, that she wants everything teleprompted, wants everything script. And I'm not knocking teleprompted speeches. I understand for efficiency that rallies very often have teleprompter speeches. Having said that, there's also off-the-cuff interviews, off-the-cuff press conferences, off-the-cuff debates. I'm not saying without practice. She's practicing for all these things. We get it. But even the one time that she had all that time to practice, the whole month essentially of August, when she finally gave the interview with Dana Bash, it was still not what you would call perfect, with statements like deadline based on time, which is what every deadline is, the kind of a little mini word salad. So I know we talked a little bit about this with Joe Semplinsky yesterday, but still worth noting. We got some other comments coming in, but we got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us.
Wow, you found it.
I did.
The History of Water Part 6? I've been dying to read this.
I know, honey.
I always wanted that book.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install one of our high-efficiency water softeners, we're thinking about hard water and limescale buildup, so you can just think about longer-lasting appliances and softer skin and hair. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
What's up, guys? What I'm about to show you is going to change the way you shave your head forever.
You can shave your head in 90 seconds or less.
With no cuts or nicks. It's 100% waterproof.
It even works in the shower.
Introducing Remington's Balder Boss. With increased flex and 5 dual-track floating head design, get over 60% more head coverage for a faster, closer shave and skin-close results.
No nicks, no scrapes. Fit in the palm of my hand, and the results were amazing.
Shave in the shower or with any foam or gel. With Japanese-grade steel blades, plow through the thickest of hair. Anytime, anywhere. There's even a pop-up trimmer to complete your perfect groove. Now, you can try the Remington Balder Boss in your home for 30 days for just $14.99. Complete with a 5-year limited warranty and 100% satisfaction guarantee. You can also get our ear, nose, and brow trimmer free. Just pay separate processing and handling.
Give it a try. You won't be disappointed.
Order your Balder Boss now.
Shell Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon. Weeknights at 6:30 on Big.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So many great comments coming in. Here's a few about specifically the school districts. And we talked about some people, their taxes finally seeing the tax bill on the somewhat recent school budget votes. Good morning, Frank. Good morning. I'm interested in your thoughts on schools, costs, and enrollment. I have not researched it, but I live in the Jasper-Troopsburg School District, and the enrollment has dropped significantly. Why build a new school? Just use existing Troopsburg building. I believe that the student body is small enough for everyone to fit into that building. I don't have a specific stance on Jasper-Troopsburg. I mean, I have my opinion on school costs and enrollment. That seems to be the case where in most districts where the student population decreases and the costs increase, and a lot of people talk about that because of administrative costs and how much of it isn't really going to students' education but going to administration costs. I think there was a lot of people upset. That's why we had a couple budgets being turned down that were ultimately voted back in or voted for with some cuts made, because sometimes school districts do get we've seen this historically, where they say, well, the budget hasn't been turned down in a while. Let's push it. If we get it here, if it gets turned down, we'll probably get it here, and then we'll have to go to that other budget, which that's not a huge cut from anyway. But yes, I would say there's a lot of people getting more and more upset. But it ties in together with everything going on in New York State with the higher costs and at a time when inflation and the list goes on of what everything is costing you, gas, and then you see a school district with fewer students, and this is not pointing out any specific school district, with fewer students asking for more and more and more, and it becomes untenable. It just becomes to where you say, I can't afford the name brand of something that I like, or I can't afford to put gas in my car, and yet now my tax bill has increased so much. So this is an instance where the voter actually gets to vote if they want their tax increased, and that's why I'm always surprised in New York State that they go through. So I think it was 91% went through the first time around, and I'm just shocked by that, because maybe I'm wired different, but in New York State, with all the ways that they are hitting us, taxes and fees, et cetera, I'm not going to go out of my way to increase those costs even more. Okay? So I guess that's my thoughts on it. And if anybody in the Jasper-Troopsburg area wants to weigh in on that comment, that'd be great. And thank you for reaching out. Next up, Ken mentioned his Horsehead school tax bill, that it went up about 18%. Biggest single year jump I've ever had. Wow. I would ask how that makes you feel. I'm guessing I probably couldn't use the words on the program. That's a blow. Sorry to hear that, Ken. All right. Ken also had mentioned, I think this is a very good point. Well, a couple different points. Let me see here. As Hochul said when she became governor, she is a Biden Democrat. Yeah, really stuck with Biden. She was one of the last people standing. With her not knowing anything about China spying on her administration, one wonders if she is senile like Biden, corrupt like Biden, or just a puppet like Biden is. Thank you, Ken. Yes, she is now trying to downplay the connection there with Mrs. Sun, or Miss Sun, and those spying or those Chinese agent allegations. Another comment, Ken had sent me a good post, an interesting post. It's just a little too long. I'm going to use it in another show when we don't have so much breaking news. And he mentioned that when he posted it, or when his wife posted it, she was warned and red flagged, and it was taken down, and now many people are saying bad things to her and about her. Just another instance of the main tools of Democrats: censorship and demonize of anyone that doesn't think the way that they want you to. Yeah, I mean, and I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, Ken. It is only going to get worse before November. It is going to get scary. I mean, it is at a time where you are demonized, you are censorship, which is a weird way of saying that, but you are censored. And the unfortunate part is, because of demonization, many people self-censor. And this has been a conversation amongst conservatives for a very long time. How many people look at college campuses, for instance? Let's say you're conservative and you're on a college campus. Would you want to put out your political beliefs at all? Because first of all, you may be attacked. There may be a violence aspect there. But at the very least, you're a social pariah. You're no longer invited to parties. For heaven's sakes, your professors may even give you a worse grade if they find out you're a conservative, because that's the grown-ups in the room and how they handle it when they're in their bubble, their yes man bubble. So the same idea translates out into the real world as well, not just on college campuses. How many people do you know that, 100% proof, if you will, when polling historically has been lower for Trump than actual on election day? Because how many people don't want the hassle to tell a pollster, yes, I'm a Trump supporter, not knowing what kind of backlash you'll receive, not knowing if you can trust a pollster? Or if you answer that question, then all of a sudden, unfortunately, this is a world we're in, your wife, your husband, your kids, your grandkids hear that, and basically you're out of the family, you're out of some friend group because you support Trump. So that's why a lot of people don't, and it's not an issue of courage. I don't blame people that say, hey, I want to live my life. I want my life to be better. I want peace and prosperity like under the Trump administration, so I'll end up voting for him. But I'm not going to put myself on the line because I want to keep my job. I want to have a happy marriage. I want to have a nice family. And I don't want to ruin that. Unfortunately, just this is how divided we are by essentially picking a side. So the demonization and censorship, as well as self-censorship, is going to get worse before it gets better, and specifically as we near November. So that's a very good point. Thank you, Ken. Here's an interesting, going back to what I had just mentioned on college campuses. A professor of marketing at NYU, New York University, Stern School of Business. His name's Scott Galloway. And he was on MSNBC's The Readout. He said, what's unusual about the discussion is, through this election, we thought it was going to be a referendum on women's rights and bodily autonomy. And Vice President Harris has probably locked up the young female vote. What I think wins or loses this election, Joy, is ironically whose vision for masculinity wins here. A lot of young men are not so much moving towards the Republican Party. Your network has spoken very often about the largest gender divide in history. It's not men moving towards the Republican Party. They're just as supportive of gender rights as every other group. They're moving away from the Democrat Party because they don't feel seen. If you go to the DNC's website, it says explicitly who we serve, and it lists 16 demographic groups. As far as I could tell, they cover about 75% of the population, or specifically don't cover young men. So in some, they just don't feel seen. The Democrat Party right now is facing the same issue that many universities and the DEI apparatus is seeing. That's when you're explicitly advocating for 75% of the population. Are you advocating and representing them, or are you discriminating against the 25%? Also, we never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. The Infrastructure Act will result in 70% of those new jobs that will go to men without necessarily college degrees, but they didn't want to talk about it. Just an interesting thing I didn't expect to hear on Joy Reid's program. All right, we're running late on a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
What do you do when your tire goes flat and there's no air anywhere? You reach for Bullseye Pro, the smarter, faster, hands-free way to fill it up with air. Bullseye Pro is equipped with a rechargeable lithium-ion power plant. So fast and so convenient. It's like the power of an air compressor in the palm of your hand. Look, you can inflate all 4 tires on a single charge. It has a built-in smart pressure digital sensor that gauges and automatically stops when the set tire pressure is reached. Easily inflate pool toys, exercise balls, and more. Call or go online now and get the complete Bullseye Pro inflation system for the factory direct price of just $79.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free, and we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. Order now.
Order call 1-800-970-9843. That's 1-800-970-9843, or go to getbullseyepro.com.
The Big Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Frankly Speaking studios, but it's the Hesselson studio here on Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Frank Acom. A comment from a viewer. Abortion rights is presently the only subject that we know for certain the Harris campaign is hoping will win the election. Talk about a shallow premise. Not that abortion is a shallow subject, but that Harris is with respect to her disregard for more important issues that currently plague our country. Anyone who would vote for her agenda without knowing anything else about how she intends to fix the economy the Democrats have created, for example, is empty-headed. I am shocked that more people, more voters, and maybe there is a rumbling that the media just doesn't report on, but they're not more upset about finding out about her policies. And going back to Scott Jennings' point that I've quoted so many times, but 12 out of the last 16 years, the White House has been controlled by a Democrat. So how can we expect her, and she's been in there for 3.5, nearly 4 years, how can we expect her to fix these problems? Because I know it's become cliche at this point, but if she can fix the economy, if she can make it more affordable for you and I, just go do it now. You're the vice president. Tell Biden, this is actually going to really work. And we don't want Americans suffering a day more than they have to. So that's why there is so much emptiness to the promises. That's why there isn't substance to the promises, because you essentially have to ignore the fact that she's been in there 3.5 years and a Democrat has been in the White House for 12 of the last 16. But I think you raise a good point. I'm not sure how you wouldn't be outraged if you don't know about your candidate. I mean, if as a Republican, all of a sudden Trump back in 2016 dropped out and said, or in 2020, let's say, and said it's Pence, because that was the VP at the time, and Pence wasn't giving interviews. At least he used to do a lot of interviews. So we had more info on him and actually do press conferences, because she didn't really even do press conferences as VP. Wouldn't you want to know who the candidate was? Because we had a robust primary back in 2016 and back in 2019, 2020. So we got to know about, in 2020 it was on the Democrat side, but I'm saying you get to find out who the candidates are. So in 2016, Trump had to defeat, 16 other Republicans, and we had some heavy hitters in there. So you learned about each candidate. With Harris, she was in the primary for a short period back in 2019, and she wasn't successful then. She had positions that she is now running away from, not even distancing herself, running away, flip-flopping on, U-turning, however you want to describe it. So how do we know what her policy is? Was it the real Harris in 2019? Or has she adapted? Because now she's saying, as Democrats normally do to get elected, more moderate to Republican leaning lines. So I would be very upset to have gone off a tangent there. I apologize, but I would be very upset not knowing about the candidate that I was being asked to vote for. Okay, when we come back, because then we're going to wrap things up, there's a couple of quick things to get to with Trump. Get your last minute comments in so we can make sure to read those right here at the bottom of the hour. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
I'm Marianne Crawford. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me, to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
Every Saturday, your game is on Fox. Because here is where it happens. Saturday on Fox, Judge swaggered up and went supersonic. True story. Saturday on Fox, the Dodgers put on a show in New York. You saw that, right? Saturday on Fox, De La Cruz showed off his record-breaking arm. And it was Saturday on Fox when Harper went all Harper. So yeah, Saturday on Fox is where it happens.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app. Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. Your scores. Your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want. To the end zone! And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription. Touchdown!
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. A little bit of media bias here. Allison Morrow from CNN says, you know that feeling when you step off of a tilt-a-whirl and you've kind of been through that spin cycle, a little dizzy from the ride, vision blurry, everyone at the fair is watching to see what happens next? Well, here's the deal. The next 2 weeks will bring unusually close attention to the U.S. monthly jobs report due Friday morning and the Federal Reserve policy decision streaming live from Washington, D.C. on September 18th. Those two events are the kind of things that in normal times are tracked mostly by economists and Wall Street types. Of course, we're not in a normal time. We're in election time. That means even the stodgiest of reports could force the presidential candidates to recalibrate their messages on the issues voters have repeatedly told pollsters is their top concern. For former President Donald Trump and the Republicans, the narrative is simple. Anything bad you're feeling about inflation or the job market, that's the Biden administration's fault. Would that be any campaign ever? And any party? Is that even necessary? Anyway, it's so obnoxious. No, to this viewer's comment, it's very tough to fact check live going on during the show because I'm reading comments during the breaks and going to fill up my water glass or whatever. So I will definitely fact check that to see what I can find for you. But sometimes live during the broadcast, it's tough to do the research that I think it needs and it deserves. So thank you for bringing it to my attention. And I will bring it to the forefront when I find out the information. But sometimes I just run out of time, as you can tell by sometimes taking longer in breaks or having to skip and read other comments. So I appreciate it, though. I don't think that that's anything but appreciation. It's just sometimes very difficult to live fact check or some other things. So read some of the comments in general that are longer live during the broadcast. The commercial breaks, they don't feel that long, but and it just doesn't give me that much time to get to everything I'd like to sometimes. Okay. So John McCain's son is now mad about the Arlington Cemetery visit from Trump. I can't believe they're still pushing this story. Jimmy McCain, the son of late Senator John McCain, feigned outrage over Trump's visit to Arlington National Cemetery. Now, why does it say feign outrage? Because John McCain, his father, made an ad there at Arlington National Cemetery. When asked why he had described Trump's visit to the cemetery as a violation, McCain explained that the people buried at the cemetery don't have an option, and the point of the cemetery is to go and show respect for the men and women who have served. But aren't you showing respect for those members' families when you accept their invitation? The comment from the younger McCain comes after his father used footage from Arlington National Cemetery in a campaign ad back in 1999. Again, I don't think Mr. McCain will be pressed on this much further. Anyway, I don't want to go through that. Trump says he'll release the Jeffrey Epstein client list if he is elected. He said, I have no problem with that. I'm not involved, he said. He suggested that he had shown some hesitation about releasing the documents. I never went to the island, fortunately, but a lot of people did. Trump said in an interview with Lex Fridman, one of the tragic things that he was asked, one of the tragic things about life is that it ends. How often do you think about your death? Are you afraid of it? Trump said, I have a friend who's very, very successful, and he's in his 80s, mid-80s. And he asked me the exact same question. I turned it around. I said, well, what about you? He said, I think about it every minute of every day. And then a week later, he called me to tell me something. And he starts off the conversation by going, tick-tock. This is just dark. It's a dark person, in a sense, but it is what it is. If you are religious, you have, I think, a better feeling towards supposed to go to heaven. Ideally, not hell. I think our country's missing a lot of religion. I think it really was a much better place with religion. It was almost a guide to know, to a certain extent, Trump explained, knowing that there are no real guardrails without it. Kind of interesting there. Okay, one last thing. House committee subpoenas Antony Blinken over his refusal to testify in Afghanistan withdrawal probe. That does it for today. That was our last little bit of breaking news. Thank you for all the comments. A lot of great comments. Just covering about everything, and I can't thank you enough for that. As I mentioned, we'll be talking to representatives tomorrow from the Salvation Army, I believe, and then Friday, the Gaffer District, or vice versa. But either way, it's going to be fun. And we're hoping that you'll join us every weekday morning, starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Have a great day, everyone, and we will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. Look forward to it already.